A couple of weeks ago, I reported on the 2026, the next generation Toyota Supra. And in that video, I said that it looks like Toyota was going to be doing some sort of battery electric version of the Supra. Well, things have changed. Let's get into it. This is the latest issue of Best Car Web, our favorite Japanese rumor mill website. These folks do seem to have some insiders at various manufacturers in Japan. Now, I know some other YouTube channels seem to think that these guys are the gospel and they are super reliable. However, in my opinion, what they've said in the past related to the GR86 and the BRZ twins has been highly inaccurate. So take everything I'm saying in this video with a grain of salt. But in fact, I do think that this revision to my last video actually has a grain of truth to it. So let's dig into it. This is the cover of the new edition of Best Car Web, our favorite Japanese rumor site. And we can see we've got a really cool rendering of what could be the new Supra to sort of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Of course, this is highly speculative, and Best Car Web I don't think is the most accurate, but I'm going to talk about my thoughts on that in just a second. But let's look at these renderings. So we've got what I think the wheels are pretty accurate. This is right off the current 2023, which I actually just tested. And the nose looks kind of different. We're still getting some of the same vibes as the current generation Supra, but they have changed the nose so it doesn't go all the way down into the bumper. And I think this is somewhat realistic. It sort of has a Nissan Z kind of line, the roof line here, which I think is probably not very accurate, to be honest with you. And then we got the rear, which actually looks quite a bit like the current generation Supra, although we have the taillights that go all the way across. I think that's a possibility. And then we have this lower valance with these really, really ugly looking vents behind the rear wheels and a center exhaust. Come on, guys, this is not a Corvette. I don't know what this ridiculous valance is. But let's talk about the article itself. Here's why I think they are not such a reliable website. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I think there's some more accuracy here than the last video that I reported on. So in the last video, they said that we are going to have an EV version of the Supra, and I broke down why I thought that might or might not happen. Personally, I still think we might get a mild hybrid. I think that's a realistic possibility, although that's not based on any information. That's just my personal opinion, because Toyota is very good at hybrids, and I can see that as a possibility. And a lot of other manufacturers are going with hybrids too, like Porsche in the upcoming version of the 911. We're going to have some kind of hybrid. Everybody is doing it, including Ferrari. Now, my cat has jumped into the picture here briefly. The next model will appear as BEV only. That's battery electric vehicle. They used to say that in Best Car Magazine, but now things have changed, and what a nice change. So they're doing a complete 180 from what they said in their last edition. So right off the top, this tells me that there's a credibility problem. But I'll just read you what they have. According to the latest information obtained by this magazine, Scoop, this is their part of the magazine, and this is translated from Japanese. From a trusted source, Toyota's next Supra is newly developing an engine in addition to a battery electric vehicle. The engine is likely to be an evolved version of the straight 6 3-liter turbo. So of course, right now what we've got is the B58 engine from BMW, and of course the Supra is developed in conjunction with BMW, and the car is actually built in Graz, Austria at the Magna Steyr assembly line. So it's actually not assembled by Toyota or BMW, but the car uses almost exclusively BMW parts. It is, in essence, a BMW that is tuned by Toyota. And so they're saying, yes, of course, we are very happy that the next generation Supra is going to carry on in the tradition of straight 6 front engine, rear drive. I think that's great. I love the addition of the manual that they just came out with. And they're saying it's likely to appear in 25 or 26, so that could be the introduction. And that would actually make a lot of sense considering that the current generation Supra was introduced in 2019 as a 2020 model. So if it has a 5 or 6 year run, that's actually pretty typical, maybe on the shorter side for a generation of a vehicle. So here's just my analysis of what I think is happening. And this is a little bit speculative, but sort of based on current information. So the new president of Toyota has made a bigger commitment to EVs. We're currently in the first phase of a 3-phase program where they're going to move on from the e-TNGA platform that they have right now. They're going to release another fully EV platform around 26 or so. And then by 2030, they're planning to sell, I think, about 1.5 million EVs per year. So they're definitely planning to move much more heavily into the EV space than they are right now. However, Toyota has always had a real passion, a sort of a commitment to ICE vehicles, despite being really the first mass manufacturer of hybrid vehicles. And the previous president, Akio Toyoda, was very famously a heavy proponent of this multi-pronged strategy of gas, hybrid, and hydrogen, which now seems to be changing up a little bit with the new president, Koji Sato. So here's kind of my take on it. The Supra is sort of their current halo car. This is their affordable sports car. It's still at the top of the heap on the Toyota side for sports cars, and it's a gas sports car, and they use it for marketing pretty extensively. As you can see, they just released the new manual version of the Supra, and I think there's going to be a little bit more to come, and sales have not been exactly insane. They're around 5,000-6,000 units per year, and I think that's kind of where they actually want it to be. But with lower sales volume, that means that a car like this is not going to be generating that much emissions in terms of the overall global output of a couple million cars per year for Toyota. If they're developing just a couple thousand of these globally, that means it's just a drop in the bucket of their entire output of emissions. And so Toyota theoretically would be able to continue with some type of ICE, internal combustion engine vehicle Supra, for potentially into the future. They could also do a hybrid version, which I think is a possibility too. And another possibility is that there's more talk about the revival of the Celica nameplate, or Celica if you're from Canada, which I am, and that could be potentially maybe the battery electric version of the Supra. So there's a couple possibilities, but here's sort of what I think is going to happen with this generation of the Supra. We're going to have the GRMN version. It's going to have the S58 engine from BMW. It's going to be a manual. And I think this because I have a very good source who has this information. I actually trust this source. I actually spoke with this person in person about this vehicle, and I think this is very likely to happen. And that rumor has been consistent and pretty strong for a number of years. And I think we're going to see that not this year, no earlier than model year 2024, because Toyota they just released the GR Corolla, and now we've got the manual Supra, which I just mentioned, and so they have to pace these things out. But I think that's a possibility, and it also could be a little bit later. It could be a final last hurrah for the Supra. Maybe they do a 1-year model run of that. So distinct, pretty strong possibilities. But here's my problem with Best Car Web, and I mean them no ill will. I don't think these are bad people by any means. I think there's a couple of possibilities. I think there's 4 possibilities going on. So it's a well-known fact that manufacturers like to sow disinformation. That happens all the time. I've seen it with other manufacturers. They're classically good at doing it. So that's a strong possibility. That another thing is that the source at Toyota has bad information because corporate likes to perhaps leak some bad information out to figure out who the moles are. That is a possibility as well. Third possibility is that Best Car Web just is taking some little snippet of a story and running with it because they've changed their story. They've gone a complete 180 with the story. And that to me shows that is not that credible overall. And fourth, Best Car Web is just doing it for clicks and views, which is also possible. Their coverage of the GR86 was just flat out wrong before the launch. They had some very bad information, and I think that bad information, in my opinion, actually came from corporate. I think it was an intentional misdirection. So anyways, that's my take on it. I have my 2020 Supra. I still love it. I just did a review of the 23 manual versus the GR86. Go check that out. My name is Eric. Click over here for the next video, and thanks for watching.